He's just not a fair person. He's very greedy when it comes down to money.
He just always somehow thinks he's somehow entitled to more, which is just, it's astounding.
I think that he's gonna screw Meri and Janelle completely.
Cody's latest sit-down was supposed to be a gentle retrospective, the kind of softly lit reunion where everyone trades polite updates, and the host thanks them for being vulnerable. Instead, midway through a lull about grandbabies and garden projects, Cody cleared his throat, clasped his hands like a Sunday school superintendent, and delivered a decree that ricocheted off every studio wall. He announced, without flinch, blush, or disclaimer, that the remaining family funds, including any future profits from KODY'S, should be earmarked first for Robyn's teenagers, college tuitions, first cars, even transition expenses once they leave home.
And we all work together to buy their cars, to help them, to pay them and stuff like that. Now we're all separate and nobody's helping with the younger children.
He phrased it as though he were reading from stone tablets. The ex-wives may have walked away from the covenant, he reasoned, but their commitment to the next generation remains. Translation for anyone who has ever handled a divorce decree: your marriage is over, but your ex still expects you to foot the bill for the children he had with his new partner. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Christine's intake of breath was sharp enough to pick up on the boom mic. Janelle did that tight smile older women perfect when they are 2 seconds from quoting their attorney. Even Meri, who has mastered the art of diplomatic neutrality, blinked twice, straightened her shoulders, and folded her hands as if to say, "I beg your pardon?"
There was no reason for them to think that I wasn't going to be fair.
Well, it feels like there was some distrust there that you weren't going to be fair.
Cody, oblivious or pretending, barreled on. He spoke of shared legacy and collective responsibility, sprinkling in phrases like sacred duty the way lesser men season gravy, heavy-handed and hoping no one notices the lumps. He reminded the audience that the original family agreement always centered on pooling money for minor children. What he skipped, of course, was the part where the other wives' minors are now adults, their college fees long since paid, many by the very women now being asked to ante up again. Host Sukanya tried to interject, but Cody waved off the question with a practiced flick, insisting any pushback was simply emotional resistance. Cameras caught the tiny quake in Robyn's smile, equal parts gratitude and embarrassment, as her husband declared her children the new first priority.
So I haven't seen all of that, and I just saw where he said, legally, I don't have to have their approval. That doesn't make me happy.
In that moment, you could practically hear viewers across the country setting down their reading glasses, muttering, "Oh, he did not just say that." The jackpot had been announced, and every ex-wife knew exactly whose numbers had hit. Christine's reaction arrived first, a sharp, involuntary gasp that echoed the collective outrage of every woman watching from her recliner. She wasn't seated beside Cody. The chairs were arranged in a polite semicircle. Yet the sound burst forth the instant his words landed, like air escaping a tire that's finally had enough mileage. She pivoted just enough to give him a profile view of her expression, lips pressed thin, nostrils flared, eyes shining with a mix of disbelief and, frankly, pity. It was the face of a mother who has stretched grocery money into 5 lunches and refuses to be lectured by the man who never noticed the off-brand ramen.
When it comes to KODY'S, do you think Cody is going to be fair to all of the other women when it comes to the division of what the asset should be?
Absolutely not. He's just not a fair person. He's very greedy when it comes down to money.
Janelle's response was quieter, but no less lethal. She inhaled deeply, slid her glasses up the bridge of her nose, and stared at the floor, a telltale sign for anyone familiar with her battle stance. That downward gaze isn't avoidance, it's calculation. She was running numbers in her head, subtracting Cody's requests from the balances she still monitors like a hawk. When she finally looked up, her expression was pure spreadsheet, calm columns, cold totals, and the unspoken promise of an itemized rebuttal. Older viewers recognized it instantly. The look you give a former spouse who mentions refinancing without consulting you, unaware you already have the bank statements printed and highlighted. Meri, meanwhile, sat perfectly still. She didn't clutch her pearls. She adjusted her bracelet, a tiny silver charm shaped like a key. The movement was subtle, but it spoke volumes. She holds the keys to her own wallet now. Thank you very much.
I've started to observe that Cody he's attacked all of his wives that are leaving in the area that hurts them the most.
Those who followed her journey know the gesture wasn't random. After years of being told she was too emotional about money, Meri has learned the art of silent power. That bracelet tap said, "My finances are locked. And you, sir, lost the spare long ago." Robyn, seated closest to Cody, offered a grateful half smile that never quite reached her eyes. She patted his forearm. part reassurance, part signal to stop talking. But the damage was done. Across the studio, producers shuffled on their headsets, sensing social media tremors already rolling in. The instant backlash was live, unedited, and impossible to spin. 3 ex-wives, 1 tone-deaf decree, and a fan base of seasoned women ready to pounce with calculators and cutting wit. The absurdity of Cody's cash decree hit its peak when a seemingly harmless hotel anecdote slipped into the conversation. A tale about suitcase placement that, once unpacked, exposed a decade of lopsided privilege.
I think that there, like I said, is a recency bias, and I feel like that there's rewriting of history a lot.
Janelle recalled the first family vacation after Robyn joined the fold. Everyone rolled into the hotel lobby with armfuls of kids and carry-ons, exhausted and cranky. Tradition dictated you took turns setting up the room. One wife wrangled toothbrushes, another unfolded the cot, someone else hunted ice down the hallway. But that night, Cody breezed in, whipped out the chrome luggage rack, and ceremoniously placed Robyn's monogrammed roller on top as though crowning royalty. Christine, juggling 2 overtired toddlers, watched in stunned silence. Meri assumed it was a one-off flourish. Janelle filed the moment away, just another oddity in an increasingly uneven marriage. Years later, the luggage rack rule had become an unspoken fixture on every trip. Robyn's bags elevated, everyone else's parked on the carpet. Travel blogs might call it a courtesy. The ex-wives now see it as a micro-budget in miniature. That little rack represented a quiet hierarchy, whose belongings should stay pristine, whose could risk a scuffed zipper, whose needs were lifted up, whose stayed on the floor. Replace suitcase with college tuition or vehicle down payment, and the metaphor snaps into focus. Christine admits she once joked about the ritual to break tension. Better wipe that rack down. Don't want my clearance luggage dirtying Robyn's space. Cody laughed, missing the sting.
Their favorite thing about each other, that he puts your luggage on the luggage rack in the hotel room.
Yeah.
Janelle later discovered hotel charges listed under the family card, $89 for valet service. Cody insisted on, because the kids were tired, but only Robyn's suitcases sat in the trunk. Small amounts, sure, yet multiplied across countless nights. They echoed a larger ledger where Robyn's extras always found a perch, and everyone else's expenses slid to the ground. During the tell-all, when Sukanya replayed the clip of Robyn proudly owning the luggage rack privilege, yes, I do get it every time, the audience murmured. Not because of the metal stand itself, but the history it carried. A portable pedestal that followed Robyn from city to city, symbolizing a budget stacked in her favor. In that moment, grandmothers at home nodded knowingly. They've seen the traveling pedestal before, sometimes a literal rack, sometimes a favored child, often a spouse who never notices the weight others shoulder so he can keep elevating the same suitcase. Trip after trip. Robyn tried to stem the rising tide with a poised sip of water and a freshly minted phrase she clearly thought would stun the room into submission. What we're seeing, she explained to Sukanya, is recency bias. People forgetting how much I sacrificed early on and only counting our latest blessings. She emphasized recency bias the way a teenager tests out a new slang word, hoping it lands. Had she stopped there, she might have escaped with a polite nod. But she pressed on.
The question I'm going to ask you is, do you get the luggage rack?
Yes, I do.
You do get the luggage rack.
Yep.
Insisting the ex-wives were cherry-picking dates, rewriting history, and, her words, ignoring all the times Cody and I went without. Christine's brows climbed so high they nearly met her hairline. Janelle tilted her chin, a subtle cue the teacher in her cannot ignore a misused definition. Recency bias, of course, refers to overvaluing recent events, discounting older ones. But Robyn's complaint was the opposite. She wanted everyone to remember the early years and ignore the shiny perks of late. It was like declaring you don't like dessert because the salad course was light on croutons 20 minutes ago. Meri, ever the silent analyst, watched Robyn with a calm bordering on pity. Here was a woman who believed a borrowed psychology term could erase a decade of visible spending. The landscaped backyard, the custom pergola, the SUV lease payments coded family necessity. Back home, viewers paused their DVRs, Googled the phrase, and discovered Robyn had flipped its meaning inside out. Facebook lit up with dictionary screenshots. One aunt in Des Moines posted, "Robyn dear, that's not recency bias, it's fancy bias, bless your heart." The studio's tension thickened when Sukanya gently asked for an example of Robyn going without. Robyn faltered, mumbled about sharing a rental once, and gestured vaguely toward the past.
You get the luggage rack?
Oh my gosh, this is so stupid.
Why do you think you get the luggage rack?
I sometimes just put it on myself.
Meanwhile, Christine leaned forward, voice soft but lethal. Recency bias isn't the reason grocery bills tripled on one address, sweetheart. The audience heard the unspoken rest of the sentence. You're confusing psychology with privilege. The time the cameras cut to commercial, Robyn's chosen buzzword had boomeranged. What she intended as a shield became a mirror, reflecting back a decade of elevated luggage, upgraded lawns, and an inconvenient history that refuses to stay forgotten, no matter how recent or remote the receipts. Meri has long been the family's reluctant accountant in the shadows, dutifully labeling every LuLaRoe deposit and bed and breakfast booking, convinced that tidy columns equal security. Yet Janelle's newly unearthed spreadsheets exposed a sting that still smarts. The year Leon enrolled in college, Meri's tuition contribution was withdrawn not once, but twice. First from the communal LLC, then silently redebited from Meri's boutique proceeds 2 days later. On camera back then, Cody praised Meri's generosity, insisting the extra payment would circle back once rental income improved. Off camera, that same week, a 5-figure check flowed from the recredited LLC to a contractor in Flagstaff. The memo line read, Pergola Phase 2. Drone photos now confirm Robyn's cedar paradise was completed that fall, strung with fairy lights so warm you could almost toast marshmallows on the glow. Sitting across from Sukanya in Sedona's studio, Meri recounted the moment she discovered the double dip. She'd clicked into her bank app, spotted the vanished funds, and felt a slow swell of humiliation.
He just always somehow thinks he's somehow entitled to more, which is just, it's astounding.
Asking Cody risked another lecture on trust, so she called the college bursar, who politely explained her account was already paid in full by a third-party cashier's check. That check, Meri explained, turned out to be the very payment she'd wired 48 hours earlier, shuffled like a shell game marble into a different cup. She swallowed the outrage and sold more leggings, telling herself faith means patience. Now, hearing Janelle name the contractor, faith feels more like a tax. An ex-husband tax levied on her goodwill. In the studio, Meri's voice never rose, but her words carried the weight of decades. She said she no longer blames herself for not double-checking each nickel, because marriage should not require forensic audits to safeguard tuition. She ended with a line women of her generation know well. I assumed good faith. Turns out, faith without receipts is just a blank check. Christine reached over, gave Meri's hand a quiet squeeze, and those watching at home felt the tremor of sisterhood, the shared realization that every silent sacrifice had been repurposed into someone else's shade canopy, leaving Meri and Leon's tuition standing in full sun. Cody has always loved a pulpit moment, and when challenged on money, he reaches for parables the way some men grab power tools. Tonight's sermon centered on his new favorite image, the sacred cow. He spoke of family funds as if they were holy livestock, meant to be honored, not dissected. Discussing the ledger, he argued, was akin to driving cattle to slaughter. In his telling, the ex-wives had become butchers, brandishing cleavers of skepticism. Older viewers recognize the maneuver instantly. Declare a topic taboo, position yourself as its guardian, then shame dissenters as desecrators. It's the same tactic Uncle Frank used to dodge We'll Talk every Thanksgiving until the probate papers landed and the cousins discovered half the estate already spent on luxury timeshares.
When you say that you can't trust him, have there been instances in the past where he hasn't been fair?
I do remember I would ask him about the property, and he would always get mad when I'd ask him about it.
While Cody waxed biblical, Christine's eyes narrowed to slits of weary familiarity. Janelle folded her arms and let him finish. There is no interrupting a man mid-parable, but the minute he paused for breath, she quietly named the game. Sacred cows can still be milked dry, she said, voice calm as Arizona dusk. And when they are, someone ought to check where the cream goes. The line floated across the set and landed like a gavel. Cody shifted in his seat, repeating that money questions were divisive and unsafe. But Meri, who once accepted that argument, had done her reading. She leaned forward, her bracelet glinting, and explained the psychology older women have learned in boardrooms and break rooms. Labeling inquiry as disloyal is page 1 of the narcissist playbook. Silence keeps the imbalance fat. Conversation slaughters nothing but secrecy. Robyn attempted rescue with a soft, "We just want everyone comfortable," yet her voice quavered. Comfort, she seemed to realize, was now incompatible with concealment. The host turned to Cody, asking how transparency threatens family unity. He answered with abstractions, love, destiny, faith, none of which appear in a single ledger column. And as he spoke, viewers over 50 could almost hear drawers closing across America, widows checking beneficiary forms, divorcees reviewing alimony clauses, grandmothers vowing never again to call prudence betrayal. Because when a man protects a sacred cow this fiercely, chances are he's already carved the finest cuts for himself and left everyone else licking broth from the bone.
I just think he's always looking out for himself and now for Robyn and himself.
A few days after taping, Janelle invited Christine and Meri to a kitchen table summit. No cameras, just coffee mugs and a printer groaning under the weight of PDF bank statements. By dusk, the table looked like a quilt stitched from receipts, grocery tallies, car notes, Venmo screenshots, and half-faded Home Depot invoices. They decided to compare one ordinary month from each household. The numbers spoke louder than any tell-all. Robyn's grocery run began with pasture-raised eggs, 3 kinds of imported cheese, sparkling water by the case, plus a dozen organic smoothie pouches for late-night studying. Her single checkout total topped $1,400. Christine's same month showed coupon stacks, clearance chicken, and bulk oatmeal. $342 spread across 7 recipes and a birthday sheet cake. Meri's list was shorter still. Store-brand staples and 2 bottles of probiotic vitamins her doctor recommended on sale. Vehicle costs told the same story. Robyn's SUV lease drafted $1,300 from the joint LLC account, coded as family transport. Meanwhile, Janelle's teenage sedan needed new tires, a $400 debit from her personal fund, because the pot was low that week. When she texted Cody about reimbursement, he replied with a thumbs-up emoji and no follow-through.
I think he really is just kind of inherently selfish.
Christine replaced a cracked windshield herself, paying cash she'd saved from Cameo shoutouts. Even the miscellaneous column felt lopsided. Robyn submitted a $700 violin repair for her son, labeling it educational asset. The same ledger month showed Meri's bed and breakfast roof leak. Her handwritten check cleared for $850, yet the reimbursement request sat pending for 90 days before quietly expiring. In family fund terms, instruments were assets, roofs were personal. They finished assembling the side-by-side and stared at the totals. Christine traced her finger down the Robyn column, whistling low. Luxury. She moved to the next column. Layaway. Janelle sighed, equal parts vindication and fatigue. Meri snapped a photo of the spread, not for social media, but for the folder marked potential litigation. The numbers were indisputable. Month after month, the pot filled in one direction and drained in the same. For years, the imbalance had been concealed beneath Cody's parables and Robyn's polite smiles. But ink doesn't lie. As Janelle quietly summed the grand total, Christine leaned back and murmured the verdict every woman at that table already knew. It was never recency bias. It was priority bias. And we were never the priority. The uprising began the way revolutions often do these days, with a single indignant post from a grandmother in Ohio. She typed, "My ex can barely cover his own child support, and Cody wants his exes to bankroll someone else's kids." She tagged it #PayYourOwnKids and hit share. Within hours, the hashtag lit up Facebook timelines normally reserved for quilt patterns and church bake photos. Retired teachers posted FAFSA tables, pointing out how many semesters Robyn's SUV lease could fund. Empty nest book club leaders shared memes of luggage racks emblazoned with tuition priority, Robyn only. By dinner time, #PayYourOwnKids edged past weather alerts and celebrity divorces on trending lists. Twitter, though younger in demographic, joined the chorus. A user who calls herself Budgets and Bifocals threaded a detailed cost of college breakdown, room and board, fees, textbook inflation. She ended with the biting question, "Cody, where's your 529 plan? Or does that only apply to handbags?" Over 16,000 retweets later, national finance columnists flagged the thread as a teachable moment in post-divorce boundaries. Even Venerable Money magazine picked it up, running the headline, "When Your Ex Wants You to Fund His New Family, a Case Study." On Reddit, the seasoned detectives of Sister Wives compiled a living spreadsheet titled "Who Paid What and When." Users uploaded screen grabs from past episodes, cross-referencing them with public property documents. One particularly tenacious poster uncovered a December invoice for catered holiday meals, delivered exclusively to Robyn's address, listed under the LLC's family gatherings expense. Another traced airline reward points Cody redeemed for a solo trip, points initially earned on Janelle's grocery hauls. Moderators pinned a disclaimer, "Data vetted by 3 CPAs. False entries will be purged." TLC's social media crew attempted neutral engagement. Tell us your favorite sister wives moment, but the comment section flooded with the same refrain. Mothers described sacrificing vacations to pay tuition. Widows shared stories of refinancing homes for adult children. Under each, the hashtag marched on. Within 48 hours, advertisers took note. A regional insurance brand paused pre-roll ads on Cody-centric clips, citing consumer sentiment monitoring. Cody once dismissed online chatter as gossip, but this was something sturdier. It was legions of pragmatic women, calculators in hand, fluent in compound interest, and done with being told their prudence was petty. Hashtags may trend and fade, yet the data they unearthed now lives forever. Archived, shared, downloaded, and ready for the first attorney who asks, "Can anyone prove a pattern?" As the hashtag wildfire raged, Janelle took the practical step every fiscally savvy woman over 50 understands. She hired counsel. Her Scottsdale attorney drafted a 9-page demand letter addressed to Cody, Robyn, and the Brown Family LLC. Item 1 required a full forensic accounting of all withdrawals labeled education or vehicle since 2018. Item 2 demanded repayment of any personal debt satisfied with communal funds, plus statutory interest. Cody has 15 business days to comply before the matter moves to civil court under a claim of conversion, the genteel legal term for using someone else's money as your own. Christine's publisher, Sensing Gold, accelerated her memoir's legal review. The attorneys trimmed bank account numbers, but left the dollar figures intact. Transparency is a defamation shield when you attach copies of ledgers. The appendix now includes scans of that duplicated tuition payment, the pergola invoice, and the violin receipt. The receipts fans had already memorized. First-run orders jumped to 200,000 the morning the publisher announced full documentation included. Meanwhile, Meri's estate planner ran title searches and discovered her name appears on fewer assets than Cody once promised, particularly a Coyote Pass parcel quietly quit-claimed to an entity managed by Robyn. He filed a preliminary complaint for fraudulent misrepresentation, which freezes any land transfer until a judge reviews chain of title. Cody cannot refinance, subdivide, or sell without Meri's notarized permission. After years of feeling powerless, she suddenly holds a veto stamp. Then came the IRS whispers. A Reddit moderator, retired tax clerk, forwarded the public spreadsheet to a Phoenix field office. Red flags abounded. Educational expenses coded as assets, personal car leases deducted as business transport, LLC reimbursements that look suspiciously like disguised income. If the agency opens an inquiry, penalties could reach 25% of unreported amounts plus interest and accuracy fines. Worse, audits unravel quickly. One questionable deduction invites a decade of statements. TLC's legal team noticed. 2. They issued hold notices on raw footage containing discussions of money, preserving evidence should subpoenas arrive. A mid-level producer leaked a memo. Season 20 contracts remain unsigned pending financial clarity. Translation: no books, no cameras, no checks. Cody once joked accountants were dream crushers. He may soon long for the days when crushing dreams was merely metaphorical and not a line item on a federal balance due notice. The irony of Cody's grand design is impossible to miss. In trying to secure a jackpot for Robyn's children, he may have triggered a financial avalanche that buries the very safety net he hoped to expand. Janelle's demand letter is signed, Christine's memoir is locked for print, Meri's land claim has frozen the bulldozers at Coyote Pass, and somewhere in a Phoenix cubicle, an IRS examiner is clicking through spreadsheets compiled by retired teachers who refuse to be patronized. Robyn's recency bias defense now dangles like a frayed ribbon on an overstuffed suitcase, while Cody's sacred cow stands squarely in the path of auditors who do not care for parables. Season 20 hangs in limbo, advertisers hover, and every ex-wife holds more leverage than she has ever dared imagine. So where does that leave us, sisters? On the cusp of a reckoning, almost 15 years in the making, the next move could be a quiet settlement, checks cut, NDAs signed, cameras back on. Or it could be a courtroom drama where ledgers become exhibits, and Cody learns line by line how silent sacrifices compound like unpaid interest. Either way, the story is no longer his to script. It belongs to Janelle's coral highlighter, Christine's appendix of photocopied receipts, Meri's newly notarized veto, and a fan base of silver-haired sleuths who turned outrage into organized data. Which outcome would you choose if the decision sat in your lap? A swift settlement that spares the children public depositions, or a full trial that prints the truth on court dockets for generations to read? And what keeps Cody awake now that the sacred cow is cornered? The threat of IRS penalties, the possibility of TLC pulling the plug, or the knowledge that his ex-wives have rediscovered the power of speaking in one unified ledger? Share your verdict in the comments. I read every insight. Tap the like button so this conversation stays loud. Subscribe and ring the bell, because the moment a subpoena lands or a settlement leaks, you'll want the update piping hot. Until then, keep your statements reconciled, your documentation digitized, and remember, age sharpens more than wisdom. It tempers resolve. When the next episode of this fiscal saga drops, we'll be right here. Calculators ready, proving that receipts are ageless and accountability has no expiration date.